That's culture now. 10 years ago, people were like, why wouldn't you take my hand? You know, this is how culture shifts, and this is imprinted in our system. And if the bodies basically get less and less stimulated, and it makes us weird as human beings. Everybody, so many scientists and philosophers have said that, know thyself, know to understand what makes sense for me. And that's a feeling thing, it's not a cognitive thing. So if you're in a situation, you feel uncomfortable because you're sitting on this chair for a long time and you finally want to break, you will listen to me a little bit, but your body will want to move, and then you're kind of not getting so much of the content. We have bodies. And we make sense with our bodies much more than with our thoughts. And that's a real blast to the ego, because our ego sits in our mind, and our ego is happy with good marks and success and all these kind of things. The body doesn't care much. The body wants to be moved, the body wants to be touched, the body wants to be comfortable in the sense of, not the comfort cage as I mentioned earlier, but in the sense of connection. And you know, since COVID, everybody just wants to be more distant. That has done something to our systems. The whole culture has kind of gotten a little bit more distant in all, you know, people, it's not common that people shake hands anymore. That's culture now. 10 years ago, people were like, why wouldn't you take my hand? You know, this is how culture shifts, and this is imprinted in our system. And if the bodies basically get more and less stimulated, and it makes us weird as human beings. So to understand, oh, I actually want to have a sensual experience and not just the cognitive, is something that is really important for us to understand, because otherwise we get sad and lonely, and the older you get, the worse it gets. That's why we have all these big problems in the world. I'm coming to them in a moment. So these are the last three things I'm going to bring you today. First, meaning making, then relevance realization, and then the metacrisis. This is the presentation that's clickable. That's why it says click here 3 times. There's YouTube videos behind this, if you're interested in this more. So, meaning making, and the metacrisis is what I've just played at the last big term here. The metacrisis is the 500 global crises that we currently experience that make up the one big crisis that we call the metacrisis. And not being touched enough and not having enough sensual input is one of those big crises that especially plays out when we get older. In old age, people just die lonely. So many. And they are not being touched anymore. And they become totally weird. And they become so sick because of that, and the whole health system can't carry it anymore. And it would just, the easy way out was people being more in physical contact. But you know, you have the whole Me Too movement, and then you have the whole, like anything that plays into that kills this, because people are so scared. Look at other mammals. What do lions, for example, you know, like cats, very good example. They cuddle together and they kind of clean each other, and all these things are regulating their nervous systems. They do it with us as human beings too. Anybody who has an animal, a cat, a dog, they regulate our nervous system. That's called co-regulation. And the thing is, self-regulation is one of the most important things for next session, actually. You need to learn how to do this by yourself if nobody is there. That's the difference between a kid and a grown-up. If you can't self-regulate, if you constantly need another human being to regulate you, you're not fully grown up. But that doesn't mean that it's healthy to do it all the time. It's just if nobody's there, you know how to do it yourself. But to do it together, this is why close relationships are so helpful. For example, there's a really good statistics. I think Simon Sinek has paraded that about quite a bit. We need 8 hugs a day to feel comfortable. Do the math how many you get. In our bodies, 8 hugs a day. This is something, little kids, they demand it. They come like that. They want to be picked up and hugged because it's natural. And the older we get, the less we do this. And how we become weird, beautiful question. That depends on the personal psychology structure a bit. But we become bitter, cynical. We are constantly criticizing everything. We're against everything. You know, we kind of basically, you know, people who are really a nuisance because they're constantly complaining, mostly they are lonely. And old people have that a lot. This is not okay. And they say like better times, you know, back then it was all better. that's basically the story they make up, and they still had more connection. They're just missing connection. They're by themselves all the time. That's very individual too. So everything I say, just put it into your personal context. It's just the extremes that are unhealthy. And usually nobody is in extremes. There's not a single person usually who never wants to have anybody close. Yes, please?
I just have a question afterwards.
No, go ahead. You interrupted me, I forgot. So.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Don't worry.
No, just, so you would say a day gets better if you actually get 8 hugs a day?
Yes, absolutely. For your nervous system, and your nervous system is the foundation for you being a person who can be of impact, who can have empathy, and one moment, who can actually understand complexity. Like your cognition, your brain is fried if you're constantly in your nervous system unstable. You cannot really make sense. So you're functioning in society, but you're not impacting it. You're basically part of the game. You learn how to play it, but you don't change anything for the better. You're just basically flowing in it and functioning in it. And I have so many, I'm curious about your age, because many of my real life big paying clients are let's say 45 plus, but more like 55 plus. So they're leading large corporations, large institutions, etc. And all of them have problems with the lack of, they're in big positions. They're not even allowed to look at a woman anymore before they get sued. It makes their lives hard, because sometimes you just are a human being. That doesn't mean they have any ideas here. They're just a human being and they like the other person, and then you sit close to each other. But especially in the United States, people get so scared of that, especially if they're in power, because they have been sued before for reasons. So as long as you're young, to get some kind of healthy idea about it feels good to just sit at a table not having to worry if I accidentally touch somebody, and at the same time being very aware of your boundaries and say this is uncomfortable, and then the other person says, oh sorry, I didn't mean that. That's a very healthy way to deal with it. But make it addressable and get your hugs in by people you trust and not by strangers, ideally. All right. Yes?
I fully agree with the 8 hugs, but do you think that you can kind of reduce the amount of hugs by shaking hands or something?
Not really, because it's about the full body hug that lasts for 5 to at least 8 seconds. There's math in that. So yes, shake hands is a good thing. Any kind of physical contact is a good thing. You guys are sitting very close. If you just bump each other like that here and there, that counts. Yeah, something like that. That's what I mean. But that's physical contact. We need that. You have these, it's a weird comparison, but I don't know if you've seen this. There is machines in large farms where cows are basically being stroked. They can walk through and big pillows press against their fur. And they like that. It makes them happier. They give more milk. Very simple. We are mammals. You want to know who you hug and who you want to come close to. So there's a distinction between comfortable physical contact that nourishes your nervous system and makes you, for the sake of bluntness, a better person. And then there's the kind of stuff that you're like, I want to get away from this. If you don't feel safe in a hug, don't do it. But try to find people who you feel safe with and look at how does my body feel. It's just checking in. That's embodied leadership. If you grow up into positions of power, everybody will watch your every move. And then you will have to be very aware how you interact with people and how you don't. And that is embodied awareness, and that is embodied leadership, because you lead with the body. You step into a space and people either listen to you or they don't. You will have people standing in this particular room that you listen to that you're not very interested in. Why? Because they don't embody their work. It's boring. If you listen to me, then you see me embodying my work enough that you listen to me. That's embodied leadership. And this is what I'm on about here. It's not me telling you get your hugs in so you feel better. For what reason? So you have more impact with people because you feel good in your system, which makes you a charismatic person.